Marvels, turn your face to the moonlight. Marvels, released today in 2023, is the next installment of the ever so popular, and no one is criticizing at all nowadays, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this film is directed by Nia DaCosta, who's also directed such films like Little Woods and Candyman. And this film is starring Brie Larson, Teyonah Parris, Iman Vellani, Zaw Ashton, Gary Lewis, Park Seon-joon, Zenobi Shroff, Moa Kapoor, Sagar Shaikh, and Samuel L. Jackson. Captain Marvel has received the moniker of the Annihilator by the Kree after the events of the first Captain Marvel movie, where she returned to the Kree homeworld and destroyed all of their natural resources. So now a generic Kree villain called Darben is going around to planets harvesting their natural resources so that she can take them back to her homeworld, and Carol Danvers is on the job trying to stop her. However, with all the portals that Darben is opening up, some light magic happens to where Carol Danvers' powers is now connected to Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, and Captain Rambeau. So the three of them have to work together to stop Darben before more people get hurt. So basically, if you've seen the movie Spaceballs, you know what the conflict of this movie is. And on top of all of that, we just have so many adorable little kittens and flirkins in this movie. It makes me so happy being a cat person. I'm an animal person. I love dogs, love cats, love all animals. But there's just so many freaking adorable little kitty flirkins in this movie that it makes me so happy. Was the scene absolutely necessary? It definitely wasn't. It came out of nowhere, but gosh darn it, I was entertained by it. And that's mainly the big criticism that I have with this film. There are a lot of good things in here. Going into this movie, I've heard so many different reviews and just trolls online talking about how the MCU is dead and how they're just failing project after project after project, which in my opinion, I consider to be absolute bullshit, and especially with this movie, because I think there is a lot to love about this thing. However, the direction of this film, the overall idea and the overall scope of this thing is kind of all over the place. I would compare this movie to a YouTube show from Good Mythical Morning where Chef Josh, he brings in a whole bunch of celebrities. It's a show called Last Meal where all these celebrities say everything that they would want to eat in a hypothetical last meal situation. So you would have plate, meal after meal after meal after meal that really don't make sense in an overall meal together. But if you eat them separately, they're really good and they bring you a lot of joy. If you're looking at the overall scope of everything though, it doesn't work. That is the Marvels for me. There are a lot of aspects about this movie that absolutely work. In particular, Iman Vellani, who is an absolute freaking gem. I want to see her in so many more Marvel projects. I want to see her in everything because she is such a delight in this character and in real life. She is just an amazing person. She is by far the highlight of this movie. Brie Larson has gotten a lot of criticism for her portrayal of Carol Danvers in previous Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Here, though, she actually does a much better job than what we got in the original Captain Marvel film, and heck, even in Avengers Endgame. And Teyonah Parris is pretty much a total badass when it comes to this film. I like all three of their performances, and I like their chemistry with each other. The main problem that this film has, though, is that the story that they are in doesn't give itself time to realize what story that it's in. We have direction and we have writing here that is taking one thing and just slapping it on the plate, and then taking another aspect and then throwing that on the plate. And it's not giving it enough time for those things that you're putting on the plate and you're putting on the stove to cook and to breathe and to cool down after you start cooking them. I'm really on a food kick right now with this review, and I'm not sure why, but the analogy is really making sense for me. If you're cooking a steak, you don't throw it on the skillet, burn it up on both sides, put it on a plate, and then immediately serve it to someone. No, you gotta take it off the rack, and you gotta let it cool down. You gotta let it breathe a little bit before you slice into it and before you serve it to the customer. And I base that on absolutely no previous culinary experience I've ever had or any training. With my recent review of the Killers of the Flower Moon film, the Scorsese film that came out a couple of weeks ago, I criticized that about not having a sturdy pace and not having an energy driving it forward. This thing just kind of dragged on. It was a trudge. Here, it's the complete opposite. We have too much energy, in my opinion. We're moving forward too fast. We need to have more time here where these characters can have character moments between each other. There are moments in here where we start diving into like skimming the surface, diving into some deep and emotional moments between characters that we never get a chance to see resolved because we have to move on to the next action scene, or we have to move on to the next exposition explanation as to what's going on and how they're able to defeat the thing and what they're able to do with it. There's a moment in here on the ship where Carol Danvers finally meets Monica Rambeau for the first time since she was a little girl, and before she went off with the Skrulls to save them and she never came back to see her. You can tell there is a moment here that is building, and I feel like there is a complete scene here where there is a resolution to it. But the scene's moving along, and I believe it was Carol Danvers who kind of just said, I'm leaving, I'm moving into the next room. And then both of them move into the next room, and they're talking about the next plan of stopping the bad guy. This film just doesn't have time to breathe. We are just moving at 80 miles per hour the entire time. And in crafting a film, you have to have those moments where that tension that is building up releases, or else everything is just going to snap. And I feel like this film snaps a couple of times. And then on top of not resolving deep character moments, we do have moments in here that are just thrown in here. There is a whole Flirkin' cat sequence, which again, I absolutely loved on its own because it was adorable and there was just so many of them and I just wanted to pick them up and just cuddle them all. But it really comes out of nowhere. And then there's a sequence in here that'll make a whole bunch of musical theater fans very, very happy. Again, kind of comes out of nowhere and doesn't go anywhere once we get it. But I'm watching both of these segments and I'm thinking, gosh, all of these trolls who are out saying that the MCU is dead are just going to have way more ammunition in their back pocket, and they're going to reference these scenes whenever they have a chance to voice their trollish little mouths online. I think we live in a very black and white society right now, or an all or nothing society. Either people hate something or they love something. There's no in between where you can have a mixed opinion where you like the overall picture of the things, but there are certain aspects of the film that really bother you. Nowadays, it's all or nothing. Either you absolutely love the movie or it's the worst thing you've ever seen before. And I feel like with a lot of Marvel fans, because movies that have come out past Avengers Endgame have not been built up to the epicness that was Endgame, because it's not that epic, it's an automatic fail. You may disagree with that point, but from what I've seen online, that's absolutely what is going on. And it's sad because it doesn't allow for some of these smaller characters to have different storytelling devices. It doesn't give their characters time to breathe and be established in different ways from what we have seen before. Not everything can be Avengers Endgame. Not everything can be built up to that epicness. Sometimes we have to have smaller pictures like this, or an Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, because they're building towards the next Avengers film, and I feel like Marvel fans have forgotten that they're trying to build towards something. Now, on the flip side of that, I think Marvel has wrapped their head around the idea of each project needs to be leading towards something, needs to be leading towards the next thing, whereas the thing that we are in doesn't have any type of resolution. That's kind of what we get here. We have a villain who's doing villain things and then is defeated, and then now we're focusing on other things that could potentially come in farther down the pipe. And I just wish these films would feel like they could be self-contained, that they don't feel connected and that they have to be setting up something. The Marvels, for me, is a fine Marvel film. It's a standard Marvel film. This is what I've come to expect from them. This is the type of storytelling, the type of character development, especially when it comes to the villains, that we have seen time and time again. This villain is very forgettable, and we don't spend a whole lot of time with her. Because with Marvel, it's never about the villains, it's always about the heroes. This is what they've been doing since day one, but people feel like, oh, this is a whole brand new thing and they're losing it. This is kind of the formula they've been working with ever since 2008. I enjoyed the Marvels. I think it was fine. I had a good time. I think with the whole MCU, the worst thing that they've ever done is still an enjoyable time for me. And I would encourage you to go see this movie because there is great chemistry between our main actors. And I encourage you, if you go to this film, or hell, any film in general, go in with an open mind, not this, that, or this type attitude, black and white, I absolutely loved it or I absolutely hated it mindset. You can like things and still have problems with something. You can absolutely hate something, but still respect certain aspects of the thing that you're watching. I just love going to the movies and I love having a great time, and I enjoyed this film. I had a great time watching it. Is it the best MCU project? Absolutely not. It's very middle of the road for me. But in my opinion, that's okay. Not everything needs to be the absolute best thing that has ever come out. I'm going to give the Marvels 2.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I found that if you have a goal, that you might not reach it. But if you don't have one, then you are never disappointed. And I gotta tell you, it feels phenomenal.
So guys, if you've seen the Marvels, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you'll know the next time I'm releasing next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.